Hi, my name is Joe and I run games, but before I run games, I have to plan games. That's what we're doing today. The game we are planning for, as usual, is Draw Steel. Specifically today, we are planning for my Tower of Time campaign. I don't have campaign diaries for that one on here because it started before I started doing this. In fact, my Tower of Time campaign started basically 5 seconds after James said, "Don't start running any Draw Steel campaigns yet." My players have been through a lot of rule changes and they have been through a few different editions of this game. And we are today planning for the fourth campaign arc of this game. Coincidentally, my players are fourth level. Is that a coincidence? Yes. This game is largely set in the Three Sisters region of Thessalon. This is where I have placed the Tower of Coins and Swords, and those of you who are old school MCDM fans will know that is from the very first module that came out for Draw Steel, sort of a testing module for the game, and it's a fun little ROM. Actually, it's still a very good module. I would suggest anybody run it. You'll have to modify it for current rules, but the plot is good. Let's take a look at the party. We have Baldric, a worm-white troubadour, and he is level 4. He's the most recent addition to the party, and Baldric is sort of the impetus for this particular plot. I don't know what's in it yet, but I know that he is the newest member of the party, and I want to sort of run some of his backstory into this and sort of squeeze him into the party a little harder and make him feel like more of a member of the party and less of a new addition. We have Durgan, who is a dwarven tactician. She is a veteran of many dwarven wars and specifically is like an insurgent, dwarven insurgent, who is a specialist in asymmetrical warfare. She's a terrorist, y'all. Jacques, a woad elf shadow, and somehow accidental swinger. I don't know where that came from, but it's definitely in there now. Whose new goal in life is to become a god. This is Ovak the Red. Ovak the Red, as opposed to Ovak the Gray. Ovak the Gray had not yet fought a Balrog, neither has Ovak the Red. But Ovak the Gray was an orc. And then the rules for devils came out, and Ovak was like, I want to play a devil. And so Ovak the Grey dove into a pool with a terrible demonic eye at the bottom of it and came up a devil. Ovak's a fury, and he likes to throw logs. This is Srelin Yulfir, who is a bright elf elementalist. In my world, there's two kinds of elves. We've got regular elves and then bright elves. And a bright elf is always born a regular elf. A bright elf is something that happens to you. Do you guys remember that terrible Bright movie, the Will Smith one? Fairy Lives Don't Matter Today. Everybody remember that? It was so bad, you guys. Like, it was so bad. It had potential, but it was so bad. But that's kind of where the idea of Bright Elves was stolen from. It's almost a prestige race. You get it. And then we have Tav, also called The Sound of Rain on Dry Leaves, who is our regular old elf conduit. A lot of elves in this party. That'll come up later. He is just starting to intuit the source of his divine authority. That's another thing that could conceivably happen during this plot arc. I don't know yet. We're going to see where it goes. Because here's what I've got for it so far. This is it. I don't even have a name. Baldric came into this game betrothed. His mentor, sort of. Not really a mentor, more of an idol of his. An older worm-white entertainer, someone who is an adventurer and who has lived the sort of adventurous life that Baldric wants to live, basically arranged a marriage for him. The thing that Baldric does not know right now is that his arranged marriage is to Queen Zin. You may remember Queen Zin from the old Dungeons & Dragons cartoon, and in this particular game, she's not really that changed. Queen Zin lives here in Zaven, in this tower on a little peninsula in the Ogdara along the east side of the Southling Mountains. Queen Zin is cursed, and she needs to continually marry in order to pass her curse on. So what happened very recently is that there were these rumors that Queen Zin was looking for a suitor. Well, the PCs, when they were first level, did not look into those rumors. So now there were rumors that Queen Zin was to be married. She had found a partner. And the PCs did not look into that when they were second level. So when they were third level, the rumor was Queen Zin had been married, and now she is married to a young merchant man. And that sounded resolved. It's not resolved, because what's going to happen is when Queen Zin brings this new husband in, it is not going to relieve her curse because she was already engaged to Baldric. And what she does not know is that this troubadour has sort of used potent troubadour magic to make her engagement to Baldric more magically real. What can we do with that? I don't know yet. But what it means is she can't marry anyone else before she marries Baldric. Any other marriages don't count. That's all we know. So what we're going to do now is we're going to think our way through this plot and make it cool and interesting. But first I'm going to make some tea. I mean, I've already got tea, but I'm going to make more. We've had first tea, yes, but what about second tea? Chalin tea. Does anybody remember Betrayal at Antara? It was a freaking great game. That game had what felt like a 35-hour plot line at the beginning where you had to track down Chalin T for some court wizard, and that took me forever. Like, just forever. I got save locked on that game. I got locked into a bad save with no backups, and then I gave up, I think, somewhere in the middle of Act 2. I should go back and play that again. I wonder if they have like an emulator or it's on Steam. Well, I know what I'm doing next week. All right, let's get into this. So my characters have hit the second echelon of play, and apart from angling them towards new titles, there isn't a whole lot that changes. It does increase some of their stamina from their kits, so I need to go back through and fix all that on their character sheets, but that's all we've got to work with, really. All right, here we have a list of monsters by echelon. We've got demons and shadow elves and hobgoblins. Obviously, this second echelon undead. War dogs, I think those are right out here. Wyverns, Ashen Hoarder might be a good one. No, not really. So the thing is, Queen's Inn needs to have... So in the cartoon, she has a pair of stalkers. I think those were probably a take on invisible stalkers. Hers were just visible, because you can't have cartoon invisible stalkers very easily. But what do we got here that can... So the thing is, she also had these monsters that she controlled, and she herself turned into a monster at the end. I kind of think I like trolls for that. Something in that range feels good. So let's go take a look at them. Foul Spew. Anything called Foul Spew is pretty cool. Got a Hexer and a Glutton. Oh, okay. So maybe this version of her, the beast that is conjured, is something that is like a beast of like a gluttony curse. And, it has a bottomless appetite, and maybe she was cursed to consume those around her. That's nice. That's nice. I could use a reskin troll very easily. Probably swap back and forth between these pretty freely. Or I could say that the thing she curses people to become is a butcher, and the thing she is a glutton. That works too. Okay, so this is a start. We're going to grab these two things here and just plop them in my document, and that may take care of the monster part of this for us for now. All right, so what else do we know up here? So first off, we need a name for this mentor for Baldric. I think we can probably stick with the Blackadder reference, and we will call him Flashirt as opposed to Flashheart, for reasons that are not immediately obvious to anyone but me. And Richard is a stupid name for a wormwight, so we will call this one Rickert Flashirt. Flashirt is good, but we can't keep Rickert as like his stage name. We're going to call him something else. We're going to call him Florid Flash. That's a good stage name, and then he can be reddish, which is what florid means. This guy is a... you know what? We're going to go right back to the Monsters book. Watch this. We probably aren't going to need stats for him, but we do have rivals. And right here in second echelon, do we have a rival? We have a rival talent, tactician, shadow, null, fury, conduit. We don't have a rival troubadour. Well, that's okay. We're going to have one. We're going to make it work. Do we have a rival troubadour anywhere? If we don't, that's kind of a waste. Okay, well, let's create a rival troubadour then. No. That's ridiculous. I don't need that. So we're going to say he can conjure rivals of the appropriate echelon. That'll be really cool. So like if the PCs decide to fight with this guy, any random NPC from the area suddenly drops what they're doing, and he elevates their station, and they become an appropriate rival. I just need to make sure there's NPCs around. So that probably means he travels with a small retinue, wouldn't you? And they are mostly servants, hangers-on, and a manager. There we go. And we're just going to go straight up. I just did a Google search for my Draw Steel character. First thing I saw was this sort of tired-looking devil in a hat. That's what we're on about. We're going to call him... Okay, I lied. We're going to call her Adriana Antias, because I like that name. And she hates her job. Okay. I don't need the names of other servants and hangers-on. I'll just make them up on the spot. Or he'll make them up on the spot. Maybe he doesn't even know their names. I would love that. Yeah, he doesn't know their names. So since we're bringing this guy in, what we know is, so he's going to say, you will meet me at the castle of Queen's Inn in 2 weeks' time. Then the matter of your betrothal can begin in earnest. I have arranged for a performance in your honor. Now, I'm sure Baldric is going to think that means that a bunch of people are going to be there. I don't think that's true. I think it's just going to be this dude and his hangers-on watching him perform. But I have arranged for a performance in your honor is going to make Baldric think, oh shit, I have to go now. Important people are going to be there. And of course, if he decides not to go, then I'll just say important people were there. And the consequence of not going will be that he faces some reputational challenge as a result. I don't necessarily think that fixing that reputational challenge will require him going to Queen's Inn's castle. But if I wanted to be a little railroady, I could do it that way. I think they're going to go, though, because, why not? You can not go visit your cursed queen bride in any game. And the thing about meeting in 2 weeks' time is that the travel will take a week. And what that means is that they have basically a week to do respite actions. My respite actions tend to take a week because I like time passing a little faster. So they will have a week to engage in respite actions so they can do some investigation. They can do some digging into her if they want. They can do some digging into the situation. What they could learn, the new rumors will depend, I think, on how good they do on how successful they are in a respite action. So discovering lore, usually common knowledge is like a 15. Right? So this is just and I think there's probably 10, 15, 20, right? Because this isn't obscure knowledge, but it isn't, there's probably different levels of information out there. And the first one is just the most commonly held belief that her marriage was called off and the man was sent home penniless. And now that's what people are talking about. I think at 20, they get the correct answer, which was that her marriage was annulled and the man was sent home with a sack of coins. That's interesting. And then the idea that she is keeping her husband, captive in her castle, which is probably also, and that's like if they do okay, but they don't get enough to get the real lore. They still know something about the marriage is going on, but they don't know the truth of the situation. This is good. I like that. If they want to go with the obscure knowledge, they can find out that she has been married at least 12 times on record. The earliest one dates back some 96 years. I don't think there are ways for them to come by any additional information. Nobody that was present at her original wedding is going to be alive and kicking because it was 96 years ago and they all would have been humans. Well, let's talk about what happened in the cartoon. We don't know much about Queen's Inn. In the real cartoon, we know that Queen's Inn is a famous healer. Our PCs already know that. We know that one of the characters, the little kid character, Bobby, gets poisoned by a yellow dragon. Yellow is a very big theme in this particular episode. They go to Queen Zin's place because they know that there's a flower there that can heal him. And Eric, whichever one is the snobby one, is engaged to Queen Zin and almost turned into a monster, saved at the last minute. They take her, I think, old husband out, and that transfers the curse back to her, and then she turns into a monster. I think she just runs off. She galumps into the woods or whatever because it was a cartoon. And Queen Zin's brother, who has heretofore, I think, never been seen in the show, I don't remember where he came from, offers to make the thief, maybe, the acrobat, one of the two of them, offers to make her the new queen of Zin. She refuses, and they leave. So, what's going to happen to the PCs? How are we going to echo that? Okay, so first off, what happens is the real Queen Zin was a real healer some 100 years ago. Somehow, I think the guests at her wedding were poisoned. Were they poisoned by her? Maybe, but I like the idea that they were poisoned by a rival and she was blamed. Do you know how long worm mites live? Quite a while. I like the idea that our friend Florid Flash, aka Mr. Flashirt, I like the idea that he is the one that cursed her. Yeah. So, we got to tie in this gluttony angle somehow. Maybe her guests were served a meal made of the groom, and they were poisoned. It's her wedding, so she's not eating, of course. Or maybe she was eating, and she was subsequently poisoned and knew how to cure herself. Maybe she ran out to her gardens and grabbed an antidote for herself, but she couldn't get back to the other people in time. I like this. I like the idea that she was pulled into this, and that because she's never struck me as a character, and granted she's in one episode of one cartoon, but she's never struck, the idea of her has never struck me as a particularly malicious, like she's not an evil, wicked kind of character. I think she's like a wrong place, wrong time kind of villain. So her guests were served a meal made from the groom and were poisoned. Maybe she ate a little, but not as much as them. So she runs out to the garden to secure an antidote. And then when she arrives, she falls ill herself, having taken a smaller dose of whatever this is. She collapses, makes just enough antidote for herself. By the time she is able to get back inside, everybody else is already dead. And our friend Florid Flash here is, I like to think, maybe we pull in some sort of divine retribution. So Florid invokes some god or demon king to curse her, maybe not even doing it on purpose, right? Because this guy probably, I don't think he's got that kind of personal power, but he's a troubadour. And when someone like that is in their full power, they can attract attention. He lays a curse on her on the spot, and essentially his notes hit just the right ear, and some powerful entity empowered his curse. Yeah. Who? I don't know. Who have we got? So we have a bunch of gods. Obviously, none of these elder gods. Not one of them would give a shit. Maybe some of the Undying care. Ooh, I like the mad gods of the South, especially since Florid is from the South, where the mad gods are from. His people don't worship the mad gods of the South, but, when in Rome, curse like the Romans. And I think he probably did it dramatically. Yeah, and I think he laid a curse on her that she might forever live in this one terrible meal, until her husband chose to spare her, because her husband at this point is dead. Now, in the moment, that probably sounds like a great curse on his part. And of course, turns her into this terrible gluttony thing, and she can only appease the curse by giving it to her husband. That probably is her part. That's, she herself is a powerful healer. That magic is probably hers. So, why has he married Baldric? Why is he engaged her in Baldric? Because here's the thing. I don't want him to be the baddest guy, but I don't want him to be a good guy either. I think that Flash is like this pompous, arrogant, sanctimonious kind of guy who is very convinced of his own greatness, especially because he worked this terrible curse, even though he didn't use any of his own power to do it. It could be that he has been trying to force this curse back on her, or that he has been trying to undo it after all this time, thinking, for crying out loud, it's been 96 years, and he can't. And I wonder if he saw something in Baldric, some incredible talent, and he thought, he thinks that Baldric can either undo the curse or kill Zinn. Here's what Flash thinks. Yeah, Flash thinks, I guess you only get one, right? He's like, maybe everybody who's really good at this, once in their life, they can dig down into the deep magic and call upon reality and change things. And I did it to curse this woman. And now I think he needs Baldric to do it to fix what he's done. Now that's false. He's just wrong. But that's okay. He can be wrong about stuff. I can work with this. The other thing that Queen Zinn had in the cartoons were stalkers. I think she has them here too. And I think that in this story, they were the guests at her party. And for those, we turn to the undead. Second echelon undead, it's still covering it. All right. We have Shambler zombies, we have ghouls, Hollowbones launcher. Yeah, wraiths. I like wraiths here. Here's what I think. I think these things, these stalkers, can go back and forth. I think they have a physical form, which is something over here, and then they have a spiritual form, which is a wraith. And I like the idea. Okay, so let's grab the wraith. That's going to be one of them. And the other one is, what is this flesh mornling? Is that a flesh mornling? Do we have a description? Yeah. Powered by sorrow and rage, these hulking amalgamations of dirt or flesh defend the homes of their creators. I like this. Do they do the things that I might want these things to do? Oh, horrid wail, multi-armed strike, arise, immutable form. Yes. So the members of the dinner party, some of them got fused together. So we have a number of flesh mornlings that are sort of under her control as well. Love that. Big fan of that. All right. So they were turned into 4-ish flesh mornlings, and they can also leave that mass and move about as wraiths. Actually, no, I don't want them to leave the mass. They can also leave the mornling form and move about as clumpy wraiths. Like they're all still attached together. I don't like the idea that one of them can go off and come back, because then I'm like, does that make the mornling less powerful? Don't like it. So we've got the stalkers watching the PC in wraith form. They will solidify and fight as mornlings as needed and in defensive Zin. So that's a very good start. The next thing I do is let's talk through how this is going to look. Okay, so the PCs do research. They travel there. I describe Castle Zin, where he was fighting like his evil twin, and he warned them about how dangerous it was inside. But ultimately, both of those versions of him were stalkers. So let's say that maybe we do something similar. They won't encounter a dungeon master. So they're going to meet, I don't know what happens. On the way in, they encounter a stalker disguised as someone they know, maybe. Unless it's one of them. Unless they're disguised as Baldric. Or they could be disguised as Florid Flash. Yeah. He comes in, says, the whole thing's been called off. Terrible misunderstanding. Go ahead and go home. He can't answer their questions satisfactorily. Maybe he also calls Baldric by the wrong name, like Bedrick. Bedrick! I love this. At that point, the PCs should be suspicious. And if pressed, he will change shape and attack. And that's just, so that our first session back in quite a while can have a fun fight at the beginning. How's the Mornling fight? It's got a multi-arm strike, which still only strikes one creature or object, alas. It's got a horrid wail, which deals psychic damage to each area in a 5 burst. The next time the Mornling is reduced to 0 stamina by damage that isn't fire damage or holy damage, their body isn't destroyed and instead have 10 stamina and fall prone. So you can't, unless you're killing them with fire or holy damage, they don't die the first time you drop them. They just drop back to 10 stamina. Yep, I dig that. Do you know what? I bet it attacks with implements from the dinner. I bet it's got like steak knives and forks. Yep. Okay. Ideally, then, the PCs will be like, what the fuck was that? And they'll go inside and see the real Florid Flash and the real Queen Zin, and they'll be like, holy shit, we were just attacked on the way in here. And she will, she'll talk it down. She'll be like, oh, it was no big deal. Actually, maybe the first time this thing, well, that's fine. There's two more of these later. So if the PCs kill this one, there's 2 more for them. But if they don't kill it, I think what will happen is instead, if it drops and they don't kill it the first time and it jumps back up with 10 stamina, then it will turn back into a wraith, fly off. I kind of prefer that, actually. They're going to talk to Queen Zin. That thing will happen where we're like, thank you, welcome to, you're welcome to hang around in my castle. Be careful in the garden. Maybe I'll give them a, keep out of the West Wing kind of thing. So now we know what's going on here, and I think that we can. Oh no! Oh, you guys! No, florid means red. That means I have to call this. It means I have to call this plot the Red Wedding, the Florid Wedding. This is enough to get me started, but I think where this is going to go is, okay, if they just go, well, I guess Baldric's getting married, then the next step is we sit down with Queen Zin and we negotiate the terms of the wedding. I'll give them a victory for that negotiation if it goes well. I'm going to give her 2 pitfalls just because of the story. Clearly, she has a problem with both vengeance because she was cursed by way of misplaced vengeance and a higher authority. She is deeply suspicious of priests because she was cursed by the gods. Now, what's going on with her and Florid Flash? Does she know that he cursed him? Probably. Although it has been 100 years. Maybe her memory is sketchy on the subject, but I doubt it. Is he here? Has he told her, like, I'm going to try to fix this and that's why I'm here? Maybe. Maybe he said, I'm going to try to fix this and that's why I'm here. And part of the interesting reveal in the cartoon version of this is when you find out that, she's the one with this curse and she's been passing it on to her husbands. I don't think Florid's going to pitch it that way, though, because I think he is ashamed of his involvement in this thing. Why? Well, because he must have found out after the fact that she wasn't the one that killed the groom and poisoned everybody. So who was it? In the cartoon, she had a brother. Could it have been her brother? Could it be that her brother is still here in the castle? That he is, like, alive somewhere, held in a cell as punishment? Yeah, I don't hate that. And he's like 135 years old and is kept alive by Zin's magic. She's really sort of I like to think she's like an herbalist, right? Like a little bit of a druid. Like she's not a green mage, but she has a bit of that talent about her. She doesn't have like adventurer magic. She's got magic. And she basically keeps him there as a prisoner, keeps him alive as punishment for all this. Okay. I need some more stuff they can find by way of investigation, but I'm going to give them a victory for investigation. I'll give them a victory for the Queen Zin marriage negotiation. She wants freedom. She hates vengeance. You know what? Can she hate vengeance while exacting vengeance? We can make her a little bit of a hypocrite. I'm okay with that. Her starting interest is going to be like a 4. Like, here's the thing. Marrying Baldric is not what she wants, but she's reasonably certain. If she thinks it'll help, then sure. Her patience is going to start out at, we'll start her patience at a 5. -1 if the PCs have gone to the West Wing, -1 if they're assholes. At least one of my PCs has enough renown to be considered famous here in a way that might entertain her. And if that's the case, then we will give them an edge on the appropriate tests. Those would be brag, interrogate, or intimidate. So she's going to start by offering him the title of Prince Consort, residence in her home, and a living stipend. Let's actually take a look at some titles. Yeah, if I'm honest, there's no second echelon titles that really are appropriate here except knight. So I would say that Prince Consort would be like knight, but it only gives you the renown. And if he wanted to, he could push it probably all the way up to her naming him King of Zin, because it doesn't cost her anything. And that might grant him 2 renown, which hilariously would put him basically on par with the rest of the party, or the highest renown members of the party, which would be good because the troubadour should have the most renown. So we'll see. Most of that negotiation is bullshit because she thinks that once this marriage happens, he's just going to be cursed and then he's going to be forced to stay here. So I think she can probably only hold this thing off. She can probably only stay human for another week or so. The PCs could screw up her supply and then they would have to fight her, trying to think of what else they might do here. Florin, I think, is going to pitch this like that she carries a terrible curse that she has been passing on to her husband, and that it is Baldric's task to somehow break that curse. And I think he's going to pitch it like, this is your chance to prove that you are a man of great worth. Break her of this curse, avoid it yourself. Imagine how great the stories will be. I imagine the truth will come out eventually here, but we'll have to see how. There's about 1 million things the PCs could do here. What I'm going to need is a map. I have a 1 o'clock meeting, so I need to bear that in mind. We need a castle. Let's go. Don't like that one bit. Nope. Unfortunately, I like this Drow Manor, but I can't use it. Look at it. Oh, this isn't too bad. And then the garden would go in the center. Yep, I think this is perfect. Let's do it. All right, maps acquired. So what have we done today? Well, we started with something about Baldric, and we ended with the entire story of Queen Zin, how she was cursed, who cursed her. We still don't know how to break the curse, but I don't know either. I'm going to let the PCs figure that out. We have also created some cool stalkers and a negotiation and an investigation, and we have some stats for Zin. I think we're good here. And maybe I'll append this video later and tell you what happened, or I'll just do a quickie to recap. But I'm not going to do like campaign diaries for this. That's too much work. It might be interesting to do here's what we planned, here's how it really went, and show the back-to-back. Until then, if you are interested in more Draw Steel stuff, I'm going to do that here. Links in the doobly-doo to the last time I did campaign planning for this group. Also, links to Draw Steel if any of this sounded cool and you want to run it yourself. If you are interested in the way my brain works and you think I might tell neat stories, I do okay. I have some fantasy stories that I have written. I have 2 books that are tales told in this very setting. And you can find them at my website, link in the doobly-doo. Almost the whole first book is there for free. And new chapters are added every month. So you could just read the whole thing for free if you want. But if you have no patience, you can also buy it there. All right, that's all I've got, and I will see you next time.